So the structure of this info evening or meeting is that Laura will start presenting first the program that she's directing. Immediately after, I will come and speak of the program that I'm the head of. And afterwards, we can do some questions. So if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat. So like that also, you don't need to sit and think about remembering them. Just write them down as you think of them. And the last 20 minutes of this hour, we can spend going through the chat and the questions. I think that's it.
I think that's it.
Okay, so
yes.
I will be back in a bit.
Great. So I will begin by talking a little bit about the MFA in Dance and Participation. And as Rasmus mentioned, any questions you have, you can put them in the chat and we'll deal with them at the very end of the presentation, so after Rasmus has talked. So the MFA is an education that allows you to develop your participant-involving practice. So perhaps you have a desire to invite people who are not professionals into your work and your practice, or to place your work in non-conventional contexts. Perhaps you want to hold space for others or to tend for dance experiences of others. If you want to invite others in and see how this in effect can change your own practice and the work that you are producing, then this might be an education for you. So the MFA in Dance and Participation, or DAP for short, if you hear say DAP, that's the one we're talking about, aims to support each individual student's development of a practice that takes into account the participant experience, the context that it takes place in, and the artistic intention of any situation. This could be a work, could be a class, workshop, could be anything you can think of. It's important to say that you do not need to have an established practice with dance and participation in order to gain a space in the education, but you do need a desire to expand your practice and to explore facilitation and participant-involving artistic encounters. So you don't have to have a lot of experience in the area. You can have a solid artistic career that deals with other aspects of dance and choreography typically, and then this can be an additional chunk of knowledge that is added. So let's look a little bit at the structure of the education. You can see the subject here. It's, this education is for 3 years, divided into 4 semesters, as you see here. The biggest subject by far is pedagogy and creative practice. Now this might contain subjects such as pedagogy, creative dance, there's supervised placements, there's workshops that you take part in, typically from other artists' work, and projects that you have to deliver. Some of the work takes place in a studio setting and some in other contexts, such as museums. Study trips are also part of this subject. Contextualization could be readings of dance and history, for instance, and it deals with understanding and connecting to the field and its current development. So this is typically will contain both placements, but also some discursive teaching and readings. Artistic research is a subject where students deal with their own proposals. So they propose their own research and then they dive into it. And then we support this by discussions relating to a methodology. There'll be a lot of shared feedback moments and shared reflection. And then students will do presentations and hand in a portfolio in relation to that. The performance project is another big chunk of work in the second semester, where non-professional performers are included in the performance setting. And this is an independent project that students undertake. And then lastly, there is the graduation project, where students define their own inquiry and have time to really thoroughly, so you have half a year to very thoroughly look into something that is of concern to you. So about the overall content, I would say that the exact teaching content, now these are just headlines, but the exact content shifts for each cohort of students. So it's not an education that repeats the material from last year with the new cohort necessarily. The content will also always be in relation to what is deemed relevant in the field at any moment in time, and also respond to students' particular interests and the trajectories that they want to follow. So there is it's responsive in that sense. About the learning environment, I would say that it's student-centered in its approach, and that the teacher methods are very varied. We are lucky enough to have teachers who very often will combine methods of teaching, so that you will both do practical movement work in a studio. You will also read text together, you will discuss, you will do all kinds of things. There is, as I said, placements as part of the education, and then these independently structured inquiries take up quite a lot of space as well. The teaching language is English in this education. The other educations outside the dance department in our institution are in Danish, and it can be nice to learn Danish if it's not a language you already speak, and it's possible to take classes for free if that's something you would like to do. It's something that I would recommend also because it opens up lines of work that are otherwise not available should you choose to work in Denmark. Just a brief note about writing, because the hand-ins in the education can be a portfolio that have different characteristics, but it can also be written assignments, and some of these assignments lean more into towards an academic style of teaching. There's a huge variety in terms of how you approach reflection, from very experimental formats to something that's a little bit more strict in structure and a little bit more recognizable in structure. However, if writing or reading, for that matter, is something that's not that can be challenging, then it shouldn't deter you from applying, because we will find solutions to that, and we have done in the past. So briefly about artistic research, because artistic research is somehow something that goes through the education as a core. It means in this context that there is a critical and also supportive discourse which is encouraged. This is between the students and the student group, but also, of course, in relation to supervisors, teachers, etc. So the education offers space and time to try out stuff, to experiment, and to develop trajectories that you're already on, or new ones that you want to go on. It also means that a lot of the teaching is based on research, and many of the teachers who visit the education are both artists and educators and researchers. We have a small faculty in our department, so a lot of our teachers are international guest teachers who come here for a while. And some of those will return several times during the course of an education, so that there is a follow-up in terms of the development of the students. Then finally, in terms of research, students also conduct, as I mentioned before, their own projects and apply the foundations of artistic inquiry. So a lot of work on knowing what there is and what your interest is, and also finding new pathways within that. Then I just want briefly to point to the international aspect of the education. It's an education that directs itself internationally in a European context, but also beyond. So the international aspects are both in terms of the combination of students at the education. It's very rare that we don't have several nationalities in the course, which is extremely good in terms of creating discussions. When we have a lot of difference in the group, it's good. Then, as I mentioned, we have the international guest teachers and also an international faculty. And then the school, so this education in particular, is part of several network, of which I want to mention Glomus, where this picture is from. Glomus is a cross-cultural network that works with music and dance institutions across the world. So the students in this picture that you see, they're working on a pre-project for what's called a camp. So they are in outside Natal in Brazil, working with young people in a township there. Students have also been to Kathmandu, and the coming cohort will go to Cape Town to work with artists from all across the world. This is an experience that I value a lot, because it's another instance of where you encounter what you take, you realize what you take for granted and what you take as givens in your practice at a very fundamental level. And this, I think, is very much what education can offer. So life as a student, as I mentioned, is a 2-year full-time education. And the schedule alternates between modules that are taught and modules of times that are open and independent. So there's sometimes that's very structured and some that's that you have to structure yourself. The geographical location is Copenhagen, so both the MFAs are placed in Copenhagen, Denmark. I think, and I would say this of course, that you get the best learning experience if you can commit fully to the course. That means if you can be here full time for 2 years. However, it is possible to do some of your placements elsewhere. Maybe you have a strong connection to your local community where you are now and you want to come here for the taught modules and do some of the more open modules elsewhere, and that is possible to do. And if you're in doubt of whether this is something that you can do with your commitments, then you're welcome to contact me and we can talk about that. Because there are these large chunks, as I mentioned, so there are several placements, there are research periods, and there's a graduation project where you do not necessarily have to be physically at the school or in Copenhagen. However, most choose to live in Copenhagen and make the connections that come with that. We have a small but good dance community in Copenhagen, and it's worth connecting to. Maybe some of you are even part of that and can testament to that being true, I hope. So work prospects, what do alumni do? They do all kinds of different things, is a short answer. So many do their own projects, participant involved in projects and performances. Many have their own companies or are part of collectives, so continuing in the freelance world. Many teach and facilitate experiences for other people. And some also support other artists' roles, so take another role in relation to the work, so as an outside eye with dramaturgical input or as producers, for instance. Then many take on leadership roles, such as running educations in different contexts, or run outreach programs in larger companies, etc. Some work with dance in non-dance specific institutions, so this could be in museums, universities. Also a lot of our alumni work in research projects in universities. And then finally, some go into research and study further for a PhD, not in a Danish context, unfortunately, yet, but in other places in the world. And finally, I'll say something about admissions. There is information on the website, so take a look at that. But very briefly, I will say that there are 2 rounds in the application. First, you hand in a written application where you, amongst other things, motivate your reason for applying, and you provide examples of current work that you have done in what we call a portfolio. So that's a hand-in that you send in. And then some applicants are then selected to attend a physical audition in Copenhagen. That's on the 11th and 12th of April. And from there on, some candidates will be selected and offered a place in the education. So after the education, you can become accepted, you can not be accepted, or we will also have a waiting list. If you have questions regarding admission, I would ask you to contact our study coordinator, Line. And if you have questions regarding the education that you don't get to an answer for here in our chat later on, then you can contact me directly. Very welcome to do that. Yeah, I think that's about it for me. Your questions will be answered later. But maybe, you know what, while Rasmus gets up here with his computer, I will just answer the one I can see here. Whether you need an English proficiency test, no, not officially. When you, if you are selected for the audition, then we will gauge whether it's sufficient, your English. So there's not an official test that you have to do. Good, over to you, Rasmus.
Thank you.
No,
I don't need that.
Let me stop sharing.
Thank you.
Oh, hang on, where's my mouse?
All right, I'll start. I will speak about the MFA in choreography. I'm going to use the sort of program structure from the study plan to structure also the talk, and I'll show it in a bit. But I could start first by saying a few things about the program on a more general level. It started in 2020, so we are currently with the 3rd generation of students graduating this summer, and admissions now for the 4th generation. When starting up this program and the first drafts of the curriculum, one of the sort of key factors in the structure of the program were, and as you will see in the program structure eventually, were the 2 main topics of choreographic production and physical practice. And I wanted to nudge a little bit, let's say, towards physical practice, and that's why it fills quite a big chunk in the program. But I also wanted to somehow, let's say, propose a dialogue between those 2 topics, between physical practice and choreographic production. Now, by saying so, I don't necessarily mean that they are the same thing, that the physical practice results in the choreographic production, but that they are related to each other. They could also be sort of counterparts in that sense. If you're working in your choreographic work in a specific way, maybe you want to compensate in your physical practice by working very differently. So it's more about how they feed each other rather than thinking that they are aligned as one thing. I'll start sharing this structure so you can see it and follow there. Let's see, here we go. So looking at the first square there, it's mentioned all the different modules that then are repeated throughout the program. Here they are in the first square there. They're ordered in size, not chronology. So you see the largest part of the 2-year program is the final project, the master's project. And then very close, with just one ECTS point less, is the choreographic production. And then also very close, physical practice, so what I just mentioned. And then you have 3 more elements, which are documentation and publication, and then the Nordic choreographic platform that I will explain a bit more, and artistic research. So moving down here and looking at the semester structure, you will see that all the semesters are kind of structured in the same way, meaning there is this physical practice, choreographic production, Nordic choreographic platform, or NCP, as we also call it. Artistic research is the only one that is only there in the first semester as an introduction to artistic research, and then a recurring element of documentation and publication. So this is then repeated in the second semester without the artistic research, as well as in the third semester. And then finally there's the master's project in the last fourth semester that fills the entire semester. So I already mentioned a little bit the physical practice and choreographic production, but choreographic production means an actual produced choreographic work. It can take a little bit of different shapes, and we might, from the faculty side, sort of commission certain aspects of that work. So to give an example of previous such commissions, just to give you an idea, but also to say that the fact that we have done those kind of commissions before doesn't necessarily mean we'll do them again. We've been, since we also have a bachelor program in dance and choreography, we are trying to initiate some collaborations between the students in the different programs, giving them a chance to both get to know each other, on the floor in the studio, and also, of course, the interest in the actual content of the work. So we've been doing these choreographic productions where the MA students are working with the students of the BA program. Last year, when we did not have a BA program in Copenhagen, they were instead working with the BA students from Holstebro, where there's a second campus of the school, also having a dance BA. And another commission that we've done is asking the choreographic production to be done in the form of a performance lecture. Another commission that we've done is asking people to make a piece that will perform in 2 different places, and preferably very different spaces. So one of them somewhere here around the premises at the school, and then finding an external partner to present the same work there. And this external partner could be really anything. Like you could also be out in the public, in a public space, but just to experience the differences of the same work in 2 different venues. So those are examples of this kind of how we might structure a choreographic production. But in any case, we're thinking about the production because you could the term there, production, what it means in this case is that it's a sort of finished work. So it's not so much of a work in progress showing or a open-ended process, but it's a piece that is somehow put together to become a piece, an artifact in the form of a performance. So we're insisting a little bit on this finishing of a product. So it's not called the choreographic product, but production in that sense of finishing up something. And I can now, that module is individual work. Like I said, we might commission in one way or another, ask for a specific format or another. But the work is individual by the student and supervised, mostly by us in the faculty. And together with me in the faculty, there's Michaela Kuhn and also Joachim or Kim Bigas. And between us, we usually share responsibilities in supervision, either dividing students between us, but also dividing certain tasks between us. So for example, Kim, who is quite involved in another element that I'll speak about afterwards, this publication and documentation that Kim is curating for us. So he might be supervising that aspect of the work. Michaela, who has extensive experience as a producer, might be working on more those aspects or supervising those aspects for the student during that process. And then I many times have had the responsibility of feedbacking on sort of presented material. So a little bit less following the process, but being the one who sort of bounces back and feedbacks on what is presented. So this is not written in stone, but it gives you an idea of how we're working. So that might be it for the choreographic production. And then I'll say something about physical practice as well. So next to this entanglement between those two, that is also somehow up to you, the student, to figure out what kind of relationship you're building between those two elements. Physical practice is a lot on individual as well, finding your physical practice and making sure that you're keeping that up. Can be supported in different ways through supervision and so, but also through guest teachers that come in. So there are also workshops, a lot of times shorter, maybe a week and sometimes just a few days, or kind of specific input from invited choreographers who share. And many times then both those aspects, even how they work, like how they produce, what kind of strategies for production they have, but also what kind of physical practices and their relationship between, like how they deal with that relationship. So another thing I could mention as well is that there's not really dance classes provided in this program for the MA, but since we also have the bachelor program running, there is the possibility sometimes of joining physical classes with the BA program. So that could also be, but it's also the choice of the student whether to do that or not. All right, moving on to the next one, this NCP or Nordic Choreographic Platform. So this is an initiative that we had from the beginning in the program. It's a collaboration between 4 Nordic programs, MFA programs in choreography. So it's the program in Oslo in Norway at KIO, and it is with the University of the Arts in Stockholm, and then also the Theatre Academy at UniArts Helsinki and us. So between these 4 programs we meet once per semester. It's structured a little bit differently, not always the same either. Many times we try to connect it to some other event, like a festival or a conference or symposium or so that our students get to visit something that is not organized by us, but we become a part of it. So we're piggybacking a little bit on these events, and it's both as a way to use the resources to visit these already organized events, but it's also to introduce the students to this Nordic field or network and see what's going on there. We also have sometimes when we are not connecting it to a specific event, and it's more focused on the sharing between the students. So where the sort of peer-to-peer sharings. Usually we don't have the possibility to actually show work for each other because that's a bit heavy on the production side. So this sharing is more sort of like strategies or smaller proposals or little abstracts or flashes from work or so, but to get an idea of what other people are up to, and also a chance to feedback each other on this. We have also had another topic, let's say, of meetings, which has been that we've sometimes tried to go to other places than these capitals where usually these festivals and symposia take place. So for example, students have been to Kilpisjärvi in Finland, up in the north, where there's a center for climate studies. We also visited the Sápmi University in Kautokeino in the north of Norway. Then it's a lot about visiting that local context, meeting artists from there, scholars at the university, to understand the contexts that they are working in. So those 3 themes, either visiting an event organized by someone else, organizing peer-to-peer exchanges, or visiting a specific local context somewhere else. And as I said, it happens once per semester, and it rotates between the 4 institutions, visiting a different country each time. I could also say that between these 4 programs, we are synced in our admissions with Stockholm, while Oslo and Helsinki are synced with their admissions, which means that the first time if you end up in this program, you go to one of these NCPs, you will meet students from 2 institutions that have already met each other and been part of this network before. So it was not necessarily thought so by design, but it ended up being a nice solution because it means that there's a relay between students who have already done that before and the new ones. It also means that you might have a chance to see the graduation projects of the other schools. So you can see how someone works with their graduation before you're moving into your last year. Okay, then this element of documentation and publication. As I mentioned, it's mostly run by Kim, and it's in there as a way to support, let's say, the student, as in the sort of individual contextualization of your work. And it's also a way to prepare for the final MA project. So as a way to make sure that the materials that you produce throughout the 2 years are gathered and structured in some way that's also helpful for you to both evaluate and reflect on what you're doing while you're doing it, but also a way to gather and organize materials so that when you're moving into the last year or last semester and the MA project, you have these materials that you can organize and work with. And maybe then about that graduation project, so it's a full semester and it's again individual. It's with supervision. I could also add that next to the faculty, the supervision of the faculty, we also try to involve external supervisors, sometimes through the student's own initiative, sometimes through our initiative. This is a little bit of a touch and go strategy, depending on if we feel that, okay, a certain student is showing interest of a certain topic, but they maybe don't know exactly who to reach out to support them in that, and we don't really have the expertise in the faculty, then we think about who to invite to do that. So it's not only supervision from the faculty here, it's also possible to have others involved. Sometimes initiated by us and sometimes by yourself, the student. So that full semester is organized individually, but there are 3 things that are sort of the outcomes and that are being also evaluated for the exam. It's performed work, so a continuation of this choreographic production. It is a portfolio. So here also the gathered materials throughout the 2 years is helpful to organize that portfolio. And there is a verbal presentation, and the final exam is based on those 3 elements and how they complement each other. Should also say that the exam is done by the head of program together with an external censor that comes in for the MA project. Okay. For the admissions, now I've been through the structure, maybe I can stop sharing. So for the admissions, quite similar to the process that Laura described, it's sending in a portfolio of existing work, your choreographic work, together with a written explanation of the sort of your choreographic interests that you desire to develop throughout the program. And the first selection is based on this. So videos of the work together with a letter of motivation and an expression of interests of the themes that you want to explore or choreographic interests that you want to explore throughout the program. And then this we will invite for physical edition. Usually, so far we've ended up inviting about 10 people for the physical editions. And the physical edition takes place over one day. So you will, there are 2 days, but you will only be there one day. The group is split up in 2. So we will see about 5 people on one day, where we first have an interview, just you with the whole panel. And then in the end of the day, we gather the 5 applicants of that day to have some kind of a workshop situation in a studio instead. So it's not so much that it's tasks that are given to you that you should do. It's more about finding ways of you to share work with each other and feedback with each other and so. So it's not like it's a physical audition in that sense of you get exercises that you need to do, but it's more a way to engage together with a group and see how the collaborations work. So it will be one day or the other. And then out of those 10, we select a group and which is between 4 and 6 people. The physical auditions, you can see this on our website, but if I don't misremember, it's the 23rd and 24th of April. So the deadline for application is 2nd of March. We will try to be as quick as we can to go through the applications and get back to you. It will depend a little bit on how the amount of applications that we need to see, but at least so that you would know at least a month before whether to come here or not. All right, I think that was it. I've been seeing that there are some activities in the chat, so maybe we can move on to that. Maybe I should add, maybe we might have said that already, but it's we're going to try to finish in time at 7. Could also say that for those of you who came late, this is being recorded and it will end up on the website, so you can also come back to it and watch it afterwards. And also, if you know anyone that you think this might interest you, they can come and see it there. All right, I will start. Well, hello, Laura, again.
Hello.
And okay, I went out of the meeting, but I'm back, so we can read it from here. Mm-hmm. So there was a question here from, so what English level do students need? I think it was answered already, because if you want to...
So very briefly, it's through the application and the audition, your English level will be assessed. And then if there's a question of whether it's sufficient, the school can ask for you to do a test, but this is usually not the case. Mm.
All right, I'll go to the next one, and this one is towards me. Hello, could you elaborate a bit on why it's important for you to work towards finished pieces in contrast to work in progress sharing? Well, I think, and I mean, this is not that, it's not written in stone in the sense that the study plan doesn't say that this is what we have to do. This is how we are practicing the study plan at that moment, at the moment. But why I did that, I think, like I said, when writing this curriculum and starting up this program, I had a reading of the field, let's say, dance and choreography, that was maybe a bit, let's say, leaning a lot towards work in progress, sharings, these like more open formats. So it was a little bit of a nudge in, like I said, similar to the physical practice of trying to insist on finishing things rather than opening possibilities up. So it was a personal reading of what I felt, and maybe a little bit of a challenge toward a certain tendency that I say, okay, but let's try to go more towards this, and maybe also to do so as a way to increase, let's say, career paths and work possibilities. So how to, not make oneself too difficult either in terms of what kind of context or situation one is able to present one's material. So I think that would be it. But like I said, we can argue about this in the program. I was wondering, this is for you, the level of dancing required for the dance and participation.
Yeah, so I would say that is pretty open. It's possible to apply for these educations with a bachelor in the arts or equivalent. So if you don't hold a bachelor in dance specifically, you can still apply. I would say that there needs to be a match between the intention of the student and the skill level. So if you, let's say, if you are imagining developing a practice that does not rely on, let's say, a lot of demonstration, for instance, then there's not a problem. It's not a problem. Mm-hmm.
Okay, next. Some asking here if I'm eligible to apply for the program, even though I do not hold a formal bachelor's degree. Yeah, there is a formulation here, and I think we've come back to it maybe a couple of times already. It's a question that comes up a lot. Just like the situation that you are describing here, the person writing the question, there are some places that you might be in that doesn't, in your home country, it doesn't offer a BA. And I mean, there's not that many years ago here in Denmark, you also couldn't get a BA. So there is a formulation in the admission guidelines that says that you should have a BA or equivalent. And of course, this equivalent is open for interpretation. So it also becomes something that the panel will try to assess, sort of to make an overall assessment of that level. Whether we consider it corresponding to or being equivalent to a BA level or not. So it is a little bit of an evaluation process there. Then, is the choreography master focused on / directed towards dance-based pieces, performance, or also curious to foster more performance, art, and theater-related works? There is something, like I said, it's physical practice. It doesn't say dance in the curriculum. But as you saw, there's a big chunk that is called physical practice. Now, that's also something that one can debate, what qualifies as a physical practice and so on. But I would say, rather than saying that what the program wants, if I look at, because I think also the profile, it grows into what it is through the students that show interest for the program. And so it's also about who applies and how that sort of forms the program and the profile of the program. So in that sense, I would say that the curiosities of most of the applicants are dance. And there is that doesn't necessarily mean that everyone dances all the time in their work. But maybe it's sort of their ideas are formulated based on a physical practice that is mostly based in dance. So it's not to say what the production should look like, but it's more the kind of traction, and of course there is that emphasis on physical practice. So I would emphasize that rather than speaking about theater or performance art, the physicality.
Maybe this inspires me to say something about DAP actually, because I realize when I talk about the curriculum that it's a lot about people. Being people, but that's to say that this doesn't mean that the work that is being produced is necessarily human-centric. So we have students who work with expanded choreographic practices or other ways of working with dance and choreography that are not that. However, the focus is very much on people, and a lot of the teaching pedagogy by nature deals with people, for instance.
Okay, I keep going here. I did a bachelor in physical theater in my country, but I don't know the level of different dance disciplines in this master's. I think we kind of answered that already through, it was some similar questions there. So I hope that's okay. Then are there any performance/dance/choreography theory classes as a part of the MA in choreography? Or would it be possible to join the BA program classes if they have such? So the relationship to theory is quite fluid in the sense that we do involve readings of different sorts, sometimes also proposed by students that we then share in the group and discuss, sometimes initiated by us. There is not a formal theory class in the curriculum, but there is, I think, about like theory and practice being quite entwined in each other. So there is definitely a theoretical engagement and discursive engagement, in relation to choreographic production, and of course also in relation to this, what's called the documentation and publication. So it's not that there are specific classes, in theory, but theory is around and in and through the other. And when you ask about the BA program, it's kind of structured in the same way in the BA program. There is no place where it's called theory. There is something in the BA program that's called contextualization that definitely involves reading and writing and such. So also there is not a specific performance theory workshop or class. However, that happens a lot, depending on what kind of teachers we invite, who also bring texts, who bring that kind of work. So there's quite a dynamic relation to theory, but not a specific element in the study plan for it. And of course also, we are asking, when I spoke about the portfolio that is produced in the end, we are asking the students to articulate around their own practice and work. So in that sense, the referencing that comes up and the need to understand, the area that you're moving in will eventually involve theory in one way or another. So a bit of a long answer, but that's how it's working.
And there's a question here. Do I have to have a BA in dance, as a BA in fine arts, and external non-academic dance experience sufficient? Brief answer is yes, it is sufficient.
Yeah. What would a day at the course possibly look like? Great question. So it can be quite different. I can start and then maybe you can describe if you want to add for dance and participation. So depending on where you are, like what's going on. So for example, a day of documentation and publication will look quite different from a day of choreographic production. Once again, most of the work is supervised individual work. So that also means that you can be part of organizing your day, and it's not that you're left alone to organize it. I think that's also part of the supervision. The supervision is not just about content or feedback to the work, but also like how to work, how to set up a work day, and how finding out what you need. We have some studios available. Even though we don't have heaps of them, there are studios here. And there is also a workspace that the MFA students share, office space that they share. So a lot of people will come in there to do the work, and then sort of like the dynamics that are set up in that space by the students. And we try also to organize, even though a lot of the work is individual, we try to gather people to have sharing so that it's not it's not that you're left on your own, even though the work is based on your individual interests. So how to support that? So sometimes a day could be a full day sort of workshop day from whatever 9 to 5. Other days it might only be the afternoon, or some weeks you will be sharing studios and finding out where you can rehearse. So there also it's hard to describe as a typical day because it really does change a lot. Maybe even more so in your program.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add.
No, the only thing I would add is that the physical place where the educations take place also shift. So there really isn't a typical day. Sometimes you'll be here at this institution for a workshop. Sometimes there'll be a collaboration with Dancerhallen, which is a local center for dance, for instance. So there's overlaps in all kinds of things. And as we already mentioned, a lot of things also happen abroad, for instance. So there's so many things going on at any one time. It's hard to describe a typical day. I think a lot of students will find that it's pretty intensive. I mean, it's not a 2 lectures a week kind of education, but also that there is a lot of freedom within that to organize your time.
There's a sort of maybe a follow-up question here, like the amount of hours approximately, per day, or expected to be at the school, or how many days per week the program runs. It's very different also between individual students. I mean, we are expecting you to be here when we have proposed teachings for you. Then when it's more individual work, it depends a lot on the student, where they work the best. And some have access to other studio places that they can work. Some prefer to work in other ways. So it's not that we are clocking in and clocking out like this many hours per day, but I still want to emphasize that it's a full-time study. And it's not, although it's university studies, it's not like when you're studying in a regular university where you might go to, then you just have a reading list and you might go to a few seminars and then you eventually have to do the exam. So there is presence involved. And I think also the kind of non-productive or non-instrumental presence is also really important. The fact of being here with the peers, in the environment of the school. So being in the study environment makes a big difference, so that it doesn't become like the program is individual enough. And if everyone is in somewhere else, it's very hard to create a peer environment. And I think the peer environment is crucial. So you learn a lot from your peers. And if there is not that peer environment, I think all the students suffers from that. So rather than naming an amount of hours or so, I just would like to emphasize the importance of presence. Let's see. Is there a place where I could see previous productions of students? No, not really. I mean, it's not that they're videoed and available. Some of our students or our alumni now might have chosen to put it online themselves. You can see on our website who has graduated from this program, and you can do your own research. If you write to me, I could also, send you some names and see if you. But it's up to the student to post their work or not. We don't have the works online. And then there's a question about whether we provide housing or dormitories. We don't.
Don't, unfortunately. The best chance of I would be lying if I said that it was easy to find accommodation in Copenhagen, but many people ask previous students from the educations here for help, and then it is possible for sure, but it's not something that we as an institution can help with, unfortunately.
I would say that most of the people struggle with it, but also everyone manages in the end. So, and we are trying to be helpful, at least in giving some tips and so where one can look. Okay, what are you looking for in a student besides curiosity? Well, there is a formal answer to it. If you go on the website and you look at the admission guidelines, the criteria of evaluation are there. And that's what we're looking for, and only that. Like this is the lens that we have set up for ourselves to evaluate the applicants. So I think rather than me trying to remember them now on the top of my head, I would direct you towards that. Let's see, was there anything else? We have another 5 minutes. I think that was it right now.
I think so.
If anyone has a pressing question, there is still time for it. And we also saw some people that that popped in into the meeting room here late. So I just want to say once again that this is being recorded and will be put on our website, so you can come back and see what you eventually missed. Okay. It seems so. Last chance. If anyone has a pressing question, it's now. And if not, or rather maybe that if you still have a pressing question, but you realize it in 5 minutes, you can contact us. So through the website, when you look at the guidelines, the admission and the whole thing, you will find a little at the end of the page where it says ask Rasmus, ask Laura, or ask Line, our educational coordinator. So just reach out and write to us, and we will answer as best we can.
Someone's writing.
Okay.
It's a lot of pressure on this person.
Let's see if it comes up. Suspension. No.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so thank you all for attending. We're looking forward to read your applications. I hope your interest got sparked. And feel free to pass the word around also to colleagues and friends that you think this might interest, and point them in the direction of this recording. Okay, thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening. Bye-bye.